Hello, read makers. What is your burning read making issue? Is it cane quality? Do you wonder which shape and staple to combine? Do you have some really nice knives that just need some sharpening skills? What if you got to hang out with the world's best read making experts and find out how they solve these issues? Well, now you can. I'm Jeanine Krause from JK Double Readmaking. I want to tell you about the OBOE REED MASTER Series, which is part of the Dynamic Read Maker program, a 10-week-long intensive read training program. Taking part in the OBOE REED MASTer Series is a fantastic way to dive deep into the read-making questions that have always baffled you. Ask the master. Each OBOE REED MASTer will be joining twice, with at least a week between the two sessions. This gives you a chance to digest the topic and try out things so that you can return to the second session to share your own results, ask questions, and dive even deeper into the topic. I'm so pleased to take a virtual trip from here in Hofheim near Frankfurt, Germany, all the way to Indiana to interview an oboist and read maker who probably needs little introduction. Jennet Ingle. She has become the secret weapon of many oboists all over the world by sharing her skill and know-how in her 5-minute readmaker videos. I first found Jennet through her readmaking videos, but later discovered that she's an awesome combination of sensitive performer, no-nonsense readmaker, bold explorer, and wonderfully attentive teacher. She is principal oboist of the South Bend Symphony Orchestra and the Northwest Indiana Symphony. She makes and sells over 200 handmade reeds every month to oboists all over the world and has helped hundreds of people with their own read making. Welcome, Jennet. Tell us where you are.
Hi, Jeanine. I'm in South Bend, Indiana, home of Mayor Pete.
That's right. So this is the first question I think everyone wants to know. Do you really make reads in 5 minutes?
Kind of, yes. I can absolutely make a read in 5 minutes that I can put on the oboe and play. What I actually more do is I batch process reads, and so I'll spend no more than 5 minutes, and usually more like 3 minutes, on a read for like 4 days in a row. Because I find that that gives me the best ultimate result. But yes, if challenged, I can take soaked cane and have it playing on the oboe within 5 minutes. Absolutely, I do that.
Ideally, how do you want to feel when you are playing the oboe, and how do you want to sound?
I just want it to be easy. I want to feel as though I'm not struggling with my equipment, that I'm not trying to like manage my equipment. I want to feel like I can do whatever musical gesture is in my head without having to worry about whether the oboe or whether the reed will do it for me. And if I'm not fighting the equipment, then I can be musically responsive to the phrase in the moment, to the choices that my colleagues are making in the moment, to the mood of the audience, like right as it's happening. And I can make music without constantly being aware of the mechanics of what I'm doing. Which is to say that, but that's an exaggeration, because you never can actually let your guard down with the oboe, right? But that's, you asked me what I ideally wanted, and that is what I ideally want, is for it to be easy and for me to be able to translate the thing that I'm feeling in the moment out to music in the world.
So would you say that it's more important how you feel when you play or how you sound when you play?
What a great question. Because of course I'm playing for the people out in the audience. It's not for me. My job is never to feel the emotions that I'm trying to evoke in others. My job is to like take one level removed from that. But I can't keep in mind the audience experience if I'm struggling on my side to implement anything, or if I'm worried that the oboe is going to like splat on me, or the reed is not going to make the slur that I'm about to make. So what I need from my reed and from my equipment and from like my emotional mood in the moment is to feel like I'm in control of what's going on, to feel like I have the flexibility on the reed du jour to do the things that I'm thinking, so that I can use that extra energy that could have been spent struggling, and use that to engage mentally with the audience experience, to get my ears off my head and out in front of me, so that I can sell what I need to sell to them.
You already mentioned you really can't forget the oboe.
No.
So there's most of the time, there's some end we have to compromise on. What are your reed priorities?
The reed has to respond, and it has to have a comfortable level of resistance so that I can blow against it in a satisfying way, or in what to me feels like a satisfying way. I think I like a reed that is more resistant than a lot of people like, because I don't want to be fussing and finagling inside my mouth and trying to like make sure that nothing wild or crazy happens. I would rather have the resistance of the reed support the air that I want to put forward. They have to have a pitch floor so that if I relax, it will settle to a place that is basically in tune, and so that I can find the deep part of the sound without having to manipulate to get there. And, you know, ultimately, if it sounds pretty good, that's great. But I think my voice is more important than my sound per se, and my intent is more important than my tone. I'm always looking for a reed that will allow me to deliver the musical line that I'm after. And like the little things about the sound that maybe I don't love, I can work with it. Those little things usually don't get that far from my body, right? And I'm aware that I'm not hearing my sound exactly the way the audience is hearing my sound. But when I listen to recordings of myself, like, it always sounds fine. It always sounds like an oboe, even if I don't love the reed I'm playing on. So I don't choose a reed for sound. I choose a reed for function. If I can come in and go out again, if I can make a dynamic range, and if I can play in tune, that's all it has to do.
What is the very first thing that comes to mind when I say reed making?
Scraping. Because because the other stuff isn't interesting to me. Cane processing, cane selection, winding, fussing around, like, I don't care about any of that, although I do it. If you say reed making, I picture myself with a knife and a plaque in my hand, probably watching internet television.
Please explain your reed making philosophy, and has it changed over the years?
My philosophy is make more reads. I am very wedded to the idea of having options all the time. So I actually, my favorite philosophy is don't make good reads, make Joe reads, make basic reads. And I got this from my OBOE Reed Bootcamp co-teacher, Erica, last year. And I just felt like it was the most liberating concept. And it's not anything that I wasn't already doing. It's just a new way to think about it. If I'm rough scraping a blank, I don't need it to be good. I just need it to be basic. I need it to get from blank to crow. And once it's there, that's all I needed it to do. So I can put it away happily. And then the next day I want to finish it so it'll play on the oboe, but I don't need it to be a good read. I just need it to be a basic read, a Joe read. And so I make Joe read on day 2, and then I make Joe read again on day 3. And then I've got a whole box full of Joe reads, and I can just pull one out and like tweak it a little bit to where it actually feels good, or to where it actually makes me happy. And then I've got Jennet read, and that's what I wanted. But I don't have to make Jennet read on day 1. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to make 10 reads, and they're all going to be Joe read. So it's that, make more reads so that you don't ever have to stress about any one of them. A corollary to this philosophy is just don't get emotionally attached. There's no reason to get attached to any one read. It may not be a read, but if you make 10 Joe reads, you're going to have 8 reads that are totally fine.
What is your most enjoyable part of reed making?
I like the systems. I like the organization. I like keeping my hands busy. Actually, what I really like is just like watching internet television or chatting with people on Facebook Live, or I like that. It's easy for me now, so I can just sort of do it under my hands, and it gives me an excuse to watch television, which is not a thing that I allow myself to do just normally in the day. Like, I can't sit down and watch things. Who's got time for that? But if I'm making reads, I welcome the distraction, and I feel justified in watching it, and I enjoy the busy work. I do.
What is your least favorite part of read making?
The just sort of the monkey work, the gouging and shaping and cane processing, splitting, guillotining. It's fine, but I outsource as much of that as I can, because a well gouged piece of cane doesn't necessarily make a good read, although you can spoil a read by gouging it badly. And a well guillotined piece of cane like doesn't necessarily give me any better of a read than a piece that has been guillotined poorly. It's really just like monkey work that you have to get done before you can get to the interesting part, and the interesting part is always scraping.
How did you get the idea to start the 5-minute read maker videos?
I was getting questions all the time in my email about reads that I had sent. Like, I wasn't as visible before I started making the videos, but I had a read business, and people would email me back and say, hey, I noticed this about your reads, why? Or I didn't like this about that last read, what can I do? And I just felt like instead of typing the same answers over and over again, I could just talk about it. And I also sort of like the idea of the challenge. What I like about teaching is the challenge of putting into words things that I do very automatically or very intuitively. Like, I play the oboe pretty easily, but it's an interesting challenge to put into words what the skills are so that I can teach them to somebody who doesn't do them as naturally. And I really enjoyed that process of breaking down read making in the same way and figuring out what words could attach to the thing that I already intuitively do. Words are fun for me, so I really enjoyed that process. As soon as I'd started, I got addicted. I'm like, oh my God, I can make a million 5-minute videos, deep diving into various aspects of the process, because it's fun for me to to rearrange in my mind the things that I already know how to do, and try to put words on them and try to put like structures on them. Systematizing what I do is not something that I had really done before I started doing the videos, and now I find it a really helpful way. I have words now attached to the things that I do, and it makes it easier to teach.
Well, you're very good at it too. I've had the opportunity to learn from you, not only from your videos, but also in one of your courses. So you do a very fine job of putting into words
Thank
the
you.
process and your what comes instinctively to you. You do a lot of teaching. And in your opinion, what is the biggest mistake that students make with their reads?
I think they don't scrape enough. They don't scrape enough early on. They don't scrape enough later on. I think they're afraid in many cases to actually just like get the knife in there and take the wood off. And almost all of the read problems I see are come down to like people being afraid to scrape in the tip, for example. So the tip doesn't vibrate. So to get vibration, they like go somewhere else and they just start sort of scraping randomly all over the reed, try to chase that vibration. And they end up with a reed that will never balance correctly because it's over scraped somewhere and under scraped somewhere else. People are afraid to get the reed thin enough, especially at the top. They're afraid to really engage with that slope. And so the biggest mistake I feel like people make is they don't scrape. They don't scrape, and they're afraid. And then of course they get discouraged because they can scrape and scrape it, chicken, 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 with tiny strokes, and they'll never get vibration because they're just scraping so small. I guess I feel like students have to not be afraid to break a few to get to the result they want. And I do have ways of teaching so that they can practice without like wrecking all their reeds right away. But yeah, you're going to have to wreck a few reeds. You got to break some eggs to make omelets. And if you're going to make a good reed, you have to make a bunch of bad reeds first. So scrape. That's the mistake I see.
Caroline Park was, at the time when I was working with her, studying with her, she was the principal oboist in the Omaha Symphony. And she kept a record of reed truths. So these were things that were absolutes for her when she was making reeds. So if these factors or these ideas or concepts or structures were not in place for a reed, the reed wasn't going to work. These are absolutes, not rules of thumb, but real absolutes. Do you have any reed truths?
I mean, that you can't be overwhelmed, that like the wine has to be together. Like these are sort of obvious fundamentals. If your blades are cracked, they're not going to be a reed. If you're dramatically overwound and like pinching the cane over the tube, it's not going to be a reed. But really, I think the fundamental truth of any reed, like, is that the corners of the tip have to be the thinnest part. The corners of the tip have to be the thinnest part, and if they're not the thinnest part, there's something compromised somewhere in there. And it's always a fixable problem too. Like that's the magic of it. Probably 95% of the reeds that I see from other people, if you put a reed in my hands, I can almost promise that the first thing I'm going to say is, why don't you finesse the sides and corners of the tip a little bit more and then hand this back? And it always helps. A lot of other things I feel like are flexible, right? I can make a reed on a 72 millimeter blank, and I can make a reed on a 74 millimeter blank, and I can make a reed that the rooftop is like this, or I can make a reed on a roof with a rooftop like this. Like you can fix a lot of things, and you can compromise and come back from a lot of problems on a reed, but the corners of the tip have to be the thinnest part.
So what are your most important tools?
My knife. I mean, the gouge, but I don't find it interesting. I just find it important. You get a bad gouge and like everything feels bad and you can't make the reed into a reed. So of course the gouger is important, but really I just feel like I live and die by my Cherokee knife, my basic double hollow ground knife that you can buy cheaply anywhere. I go through them maybe every 6 months or so, but I'm really high volume. I think that's not necessarily the case for everyone using those knives. But no, at a certain point I get it to where I just can't make it be sharp anymore. And I bet you could probably help me with that, Jeanine, actually.
Do you have any good reed making stories, failures or successes?
No, I really don't. I just don't have enough emotional involvement with any given reed to like have a story to tell about it. I got nothing. I thought about this when you asked that question. I was like, no, there's no good stories. It's either like a reed that works or it's not.
That's a great answer. How important do you think that good reed making skills are for you for the success in your performing career?
I think they're everything, actually. It's and that's crazy because I will say all day, every day that the reeds are the least important part of the finished product, of the performance, right? I just finished a 10-week course in which I taught people that it's not your reeds. The reeds are not your problem. Your problem is your air, your articulation, your fundamental like playing of the oboe. And I believe that. But I feel like in my personal career, having good reed making skills is everything, because as an oboist, as a performing oboist, I try not to talk about reeds too much. I don't want the audience to know anything about the struggle that's behind the scenes. I don't want them to see me fighting my equipment or to be aware of the background work that's involved. Like it's a magic act, right? There's a ton that happens behind the scenes, but as a performer, I just need the reeds to work without drama, which in and of itself, like that takes some reed making skills, right? But then as a teacher and as a professional reed maker, which are the other two sides of my career, and as a teacher of reed making, I make my living on my knife skills, like pretty much exclusively right now here in this time of COVID-19. It's my reed making skills are everything, even though as a performer, I don't talk about it very much.
You mentioned your program the Invincible Oboist. Will you tell us a little bit about that, please?
I would be delighted to. The Invincible Oboist was a group course, a coaching course, all online. It was a 10-week course designed to help oboists get past the struggle and sort of into their oboe zone, to find the ease in their oboe playing. And over the course of the time, really solved a lot of problems and got them all playing more fluently, more effortlessly, more enjoyably. I had people showing me improvisation by the end, which is a thing I never thought about teaching, and people showing me composing new pieces for their instruments. That's not a thing I taught. It's just that their creativity like blossomed over the course of this course. It was amazing. So I'll be running it again sometime in the next probably month or two. I'll be launching it relatively soon. And I'm really excited about the results we got the first time around and what's going to happen the next time around.
Congratulations on your success.
Thank you. Thank you.
One last question. When you look back and regard your life so far, what are you most proud of?
I don't know, Jeanine. I feel like I'm not done yet. And I've had a lot of performances, individual performances that I've felt really fantastic about, right? I perform new music and I love it. Um, I commissioned a piece recently that I was really excited about commissioning. I've taught so many students and like created this 5-minute read maker series. Like I've done a lot of things and I've helped a lot of people and I'm very, very proud of those things, but I don't know that there's a thing I'm most proud of because I'm always looking for the next thing. I'm not good at sitting back and saying, "Job well done, Jennet." That's not a thing that I do well. I'm just having fun with it. I'm still having a great time with it, and I'm not done. And I don't know that I can look back and like point to a thing.
It's lucky for us that you're not done. Jennet, thank you so much for taking this time, inviting me into your studio. And I look very much forward to further videos. Good luck with your next courses.
Thank you so much, Jeanine. It's such a treat to talk with you.